Hey everybody, happy Wednesday. This video will be a little bit lengthier than my previous two because here's today's agenda. I want to share a passage with you that I found from this book that's pictured up in the upper right hand corner, The Secret Life of Bees. I don't know if any of you has read this already or watched the movie. I've never actually seen the movie that came out several years ago. But I wanted us to look at the setting and how setting is significant in this passage because today I want to have you think about how setting helps develop and add to meaning in the choice novel that you're currently reading. So, we're going to look at that passage together, and then I want to have you do some notebook writing, answering this question: why and how do you think the setting in the novel you're reading is significant? And then I want you to read for at least 10 minutes today. I'm trying something new. I put this 10-minute timer on here for you. You may have way more than 10 minutes to read, but if you want to set it up kind of like we did in class each day, then it's there for you. So here's this passage. Um, it's a little bit hard to read, but I squeezed it all on this one page. So what I want us to focus on is how does the setting in this passage help to develop important ideas? And you can, if you'd rather look at, if you want to pause the video and you want to print out a copy of this passage, you are certainly welcome to do that. Otherwise, you can just follow along here on the screen. So this is this section from The Secret Life of Bees. At 8 o'clock in the morning, it hit 94 with the ambitious plan of reaching 103 before noon. I woke up with August shaking my shoulder, saying it was going to be a scorcher. Get up, we had to water the bees. I climbed into the honey wagon with my hair uncombed, with May handing me buttered toast and orange juice through the window, and Rosaline sticking in thermoses of water, both of them practically running alongside the truck while August rolled out of the driveway. I felt like the Red Cross springing to action to save the bee queendom. In the back of the truck, August had gallons of sugar water already made up. When it gets over 100, she said, the flowers dry up and there's no food for the bees. They stay in the hives fanning themselves. Sometimes they just roast. I felt like we might roast alive ourselves. You could not touch the door handle for fear of a third-degree burn. Sweat ran between my breasts and sopped my underwear band. August turned on the radio for the weather, but what we heard was how Ranger 7 had finally landed on the surface of the moon in a place called the Sea of Clouds, how police were looking for the bodies of those 3 civil rights workers in Mississippi, and the terrible things that had happened in the Gulf of Tonkin. It ended with a story about what was happening closer to home, how Black people from Tiburon, Florence, and Orangeburg were marching today all the way to Columbia, asking the governor to enforce the Civil Rights Act. August turned it off. Enough was enough. You cannot fix the whole world. I've already watered the hives around the house, she said. Zach is taking care of the hives on the east side of the county, so you and I've got the west side. Rescuing bees took us the entire morning, driving back into remote corners of woods where there were barely any roads. We would come upon 25 beehives set up on slats like a little lost city tucked back in there. We lifted the covers and filled the feeders with sugar water. Earlier, we'd spooned dry sugar into our pockets, and now, just as a bonus, we sprinkled it on the feeding rims. I managed to get stung on my wrist while replacing a lid onto a beehive box. August scraped out the stinger. I was sending them love, I said, feeling betrayed. August said, hot weather makes the bees out of sorts. I don't care how much love you send them. She pulled out a small bottle of olive oil and bee pollen from her free pocket and rubbed my skin, her patented remedy. It was something I'd hoped never to test out. Count yourself initiated, she said. You can't be a true beekeeper without getting stung. A true beekeeper. The words caused a fullness in me, and right at that moment an explosion of blackbirds lifted off the ground in a clearing a short distance away and filled up the whole sky. I said to myself, will wonders never cease? I would add that to my list of careers: a writer, an English teacher, and a beekeeper. Do you think I could keep bees one day? I asked. August said, didn't you tell me this past week one of the things you loved was bees and honey? Now, if that's so, you'll be a fine beekeeper. Actually, you can be bad at something, Lily, but if you love doing it, that will be enough. The sting shot pain all the way to my elbow, causing me to marvel at how much punishment a minuscule creature can inflict. I'm prideful enough to say I didn't complain. After you get stung, you can't get unstung no matter how much you whine about it. I just dived back into the riptide of saving bees. So what I did here on the next slide that I included for you is I actually put a picture of some things that I noticed when I was reading through this passage and annotating it. One thing that stood out to me right away was that the weather was extremely important. It's so hot, 8 o'clock in the morning, and it's 94 already. And there's this sense of like urgency because the characters here want to beat the heat. A sense of panic. I don't know if panic is the right word, but urgency is probably a better word. The paragraph, I guess the fourth paragraph down, also kind of sets this particular setting in the context of the larger setting, which is the time period where the civil rights movement is going on. Space exploration is happening here. So that seems to contribute in some way too, both to setting it in the larger context of the nation and also in pointing out kind of the separation between what the narrator's experiencing and that larger world. Interesting also that August, this character, she turns it off and says, you cannot fix the whole world. Like, we can just deal with what we have going on here right now. So that says something about her as a character too, but also it's interesting that they're connected to the outside world, but they're also sheltered a bit and paying attention to taking care of their own problems, their own issues. I think that it is important, significant, that this setting is remote and that there are barely any roads in the corners of the woods where they're finding these bees. They have to take care of their own, so that seems important too. And then as we continue through this last part of the passage, we find more evidence that August is ready for like any emergency situation that'll happen with the bees. She's very experienced, it seems. And then this setting where they are kind of set apart from the larger society as a whole, and obviously this is a new setting for the narrator, it reveals kind of a new possibility for new experiences for her, things that she hadn't necessarily thought of or even knew existed in the past. So we focused on how does the setting in the passage help to develop important ideas. We saw that it was summer, it was scorchingly hot. This is a remote setting that's kind of further removed from the outside world. It's back in the country, in the woods. And some things that this setting helps to reveal is the character of August and how she has this take charge attitude and this sense of urgency about the importance of what they're doing with the beekeeping. It also reveals some things about the narrator, because she's in this different environment and she notices the possibility of new experiences for herself. So I want you to go through kind of a similar process with your choice novel, and you can just choose any passage, whether you're in the beginning of the novel or whether you are in the middle or you're toward the end. Just pick a place where setting really seems to matter and it reveals something about the larger story as a whole. Let me know, as always, if you have questions by email or through Remind. Either way works fine. And I hope you have a great Wednesday. I'll see you soon.